right now, we're going to turn it over to Julie Bosworth, who is going to give us or walk us through a healthy cooking demonstration. So thank you for joining us, Julie.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like I'm trying to channel my inner Ina Garten with my denim shirt. I've always been intrigued by the concept of sharing healthy eating with a group of people, especially because I think it's so helpful. When we talk with patients, we always talk about the rainbow on your plate, but I think it speaks so much more loudly if we're able to actually show that rainbow. And today I will be holding up the different items as I put them onto the pan and make the tzatziki, because I think it really demonstrates the different components of a healthy meal. And what I really like about the meal that we're going to be making today with the tzatziki and roasted peppers and chicken is that each component of it really packs a lot of nutrient value. And what I mean by that is I don't really think that there's any wasted ingredient in this. So I think you're getting a lot of bang for your buck, which I think is extremely important given today's food costs. So I think one of the most important things that we can do is talk a little bit about what we're looking for in terms of nutrient value. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my oven on, and then I'll be talking as I begin the demonstration. So I'm turning my oven on to 425 as listed in the recipe. And in the interest of time this morning, I've pre-sliced the chicken and I've added the spice marinade to it. So this is what I'm going to be working with as we begin. So there is my standard chicken. I happen to have gotten a great deal on an organic, antibiotic-free chicken. And that's a question we often get. How important is purchasing organic? I would say in general, it's much more important for your soft-skinned or dirty dozen fruits and vegetables. But in this case, the organic was so reasonable at Big Y, I decided to buy it because it also included the more important component, which is antibiotic-free. Because we know that the growth hormones are something that we've been watching for years in terms of food contaminants, especially young children with breast development and in the milk supply. So we've all shifted over as dietitians at the Farber, I would say pretty safely, to if people are drinking milk, it's going to be not organic as much as antibiotic and hormone free. So that is what my chicken selection was today. And, in like a store like Big Y, you don't have to go to a Whole Foods. So I happen to have gotten the Bell and Evans chicken pack. And it was, I would say, a modest $12 for a pound and a half of chicken. So having said that, what I was saying earlier is that people always want to know, what can I do to prevent cancer? And I think they're looking for us to list off a variety of supplements. Or should I be buying athletic greens is the one that we get a lot of questions about. Really, what I want to talk about is just eating whole, colorful foods that are lean proteins and whole grains. And this recipe really packs that. So right now I'm going to be taking a standard unoiled sheet pan. Mine happens to be nonstick. It doesn't matter because you're going to be adding enough oil just to coat it. So it's going to come off really very nicely. And I'm going to take my chicken strips. And the reason why this recipe, I was thinking about why this recipe was asking for thinly sliced strips. And the importance of when making a sheet pan meal is that you're going to have the same thicknesses to cook, whether you are having the meat, the fish, in this case, chicken, and you can make this with any protein that you're looking for. So for people who are more plant forward or vegetarian or vegan, you can consider other options and protein sources. And if you just point out that you could certainly add feta or tofu to roast toward the end of the cooking time on the peppers. But I would do that. My chicken is going to go on all right now. So I've kind of spread it out like this. And now I'm going to add my colorful peppers. And this is all going to go on while my oven is preheating. And I'm adding my peppers, and the strips of pepper and the strips of chicken are of pretty equal thickness, and the pepper holds up very nicely in heat. The cell membrane in the peppers will rupture and break down, which is one of the ways that when with the roasting process, um, the peppers will soften. In this scenario, I always add a little bit of salt and pepper to further help the softening of the peppers because it just makes a more palatable meal and allows the melding of all of the different, excuse me, different spices. So in this scenario, as I'm adding my peppers, I just wanted to talk about the beauty of peppers. A lot of people don't realize that green peppers are actually unripe peppers and have been picked before ripening. And in that scenario, I think it's important to point that out because a lot of people say, I don't really tolerate peppers. And a lot of times, by simply selecting a red, a yellow, or an orange pepper, people are able to tolerate it without a gassy presence. And they are significantly less bitter. So in this case, I'm going to put the yellow on. I'm going to put the red on, and I'm going to finish it with orange. So peppers, 4 ounce per ounce, 3.5 ounces of pepper contains 2.1 ounces of a very good fiber source, a lot of water, a mix of carbohydrate, protein, and fat. And when we talk about phytonutrients, that's the color or metabolic activity of the plant. And why the colors are so important is they reflect the metabolic activity and the nutrient content. So in a pepper, the most prevalent nutrient is going to be vitamin C, but also the phytonutrients are for B6, vitamin K, vitamin E, and vitamin A. So in terms of bone health, these are really good items to have. So right now, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take a large spatula because it just makes it easier to do the flipping. And I'm just going to kind of integrate all of this and make sure that it's nicely spread out so it's even cooking. And I'm going to take just a little drizzle of olive oil so that the peppers, not only the chicken is coated in a little oil based on the recipe, but that the peppers are also. So I'm just going to douse it in a little bit. And you can get your olive oil based on whether you like a spicy or a fruity, whatever olive oil is most appealing to you. And then I have a little salt cellar here that I find to be really an easy thing to use. I have a friend who used to work for Epicurious and Weight Watchers. She said to me, you don't have a salt and pepper blend just ready to go? And I said, no, I don't. So she sent me this and it's been a really nice thing. And I actually have this as 1/3 black pepper to 2/3 salt. And I happen to have chosen a kosher salt for use in most recipes. And I'm just going to sprinkle it lightly. So I'm not adding a lot, but I just want to be able to help with that breaking down of the cell membrane of the peppers to make them nice and soft by the time that the chicken is done roasting. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to toss that a little bit more. My oven is almost preheated. The beauty of an oven that's on hot like that is that for chicken, it's going to almost sear it on the outside, excuse me, and keep the inside nice and juicy. And it will be a quick cook before things dry out. So that's what we're really going to be looking for here. And I'm expecting this. And obviously, some of the cook time is going to be based on how thinly I've cut everything. I'm estimating about 20 minutes for this, but if you happen to have been doing this with me and you have cut things into larger pieces, you'll need a little bit more time. So make sure that when you go to remove it from the oven, that the chicken has reached 160 degrees, even if your peppers look finished. And then it didn't call for it in the list of ingredients. So let me show you what I have here so far. So I right now have this. And in the list of ingredients, it said lemon juice, but I'm going to go ahead and take these medallions of lemon and place them around the pan because they're an excellent way roasted. The juices will concentrate. They're an excellent way to make sure that you're adding flavor and a brightness. I happen to like intensely flavored food, not necessarily heavy hot spice, but things that are going to be really bright and fresh in my mouth. And it's a great way to do that without adding additional sodium. So that's what it ends up looking like when we go to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and pop this into the oven. And I'm going to turn. I will have this in the oven for approximately 10 minutes, and then I'm going to turn it. And I'm going to go ahead and flip it then. And while we do that and wait for that to be prepped, I'm going to go ahead and make my tzatziki. And I'm going to mix it in a bowl. And in this case, I have a 2% Greek yogurt. I happen to be using the brand Fage, Fage. I'm using that because it's one of my favorites. It gives you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of protein content. So a lot of times people say to me, I really want to get away from a lot of meats and chicken. I'm not a fish person. Greek yogurt is a wonderful way, and it's such a healthy way to add for about 6 ounces, about 15 to 17 grams of really good protein. So it's a really great bang for your buck. I just put this in the bowl in advance. You'll see it's a little thick, even though it's 2%. So that's where the other components of the tzatziki come into play. Now, I also want to say with the tzatziki, you can get a delicious tzatziki at pretty much any food store. And for example, Trader Joe's has a very inexpensive pre-made tzatziki that's actually quite good. But for today's demonstration, I wanted to be able to discuss the components of it as it went in. So it said to squeeze out the cucumber. So what I did is I chopped the cucumber and I put it on a paper towel on a cutting board. So I have my cutting surface here. By chopping it, I'm increasing the surface area of the cucumber, opening the cells, the plant cells that contain and hold the water, which is what gives the cucumber turgor pressure. So that's our little food science lesson. And now I'm going to take it and I'm going to kind of press it between two paper towels to get that extra liquid out. I'm rolling my paper towel over and it's absorbing any additional liquid because I don't want those tzatziki, if I don't happen to finish it all today, for my family who's going to be having lunch with this. It'll allow me to have tzatziki that doesn't separate out. So I've got this here. You can see that this paper towel has become significantly more saturated, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in. I went heavy-handed on the cucumber because I think it gives a really nice crunch, and I'm big into texture. So I've added that to the yogurt bowl. Now, we don't want this tzatziki to be pasty. If you saw the recipe that was attached to the demo today, you'll see that that recipe showed a tzatziki that's more of a sauce. So we don't want it to be pasty like a dip would be. So in that case, I'm going to go ahead and stir the cucumber in for ease. And I do like the fact that this recipe, just to go back and say again, you could put fish in, you could put the chicken in that I've used. If you don't happen to like chicken breast like the recipe called for, I find that chicken thigh cooks very nicely on any sheet pan meal, and I do a lot of sheet pan meals. I've done them for Korean food. I've done it for Asian food. So you could use salmon, whatever you think is going to be the most appealing to you and the group you're cooking for. You'll notice that this statement was using a small clove of garlic, and it is a small clove because this is going to be eaten raw. I love how translucent this garlic is. It shows the level of freshness, and it's very juicy. It won't be super strong as a result. The sulfur compounds intensify as garlic becomes older. So this won't be super strong, but still, I only want to use a small amount, being that it's going to be applied raw. And if you find that you really don't want raw garlic, you might be going somewhere after eating, you can always add the garlic to the sheet pan. And with the sheet pan, it will cook the garlic and caramelize as you go. So that's another great way to do it without having a really intense garlic flavor. All right, so now I have added everything. I'm going to add a little bit of dill. I use some fresh dill in this scenario. And I'm going to go ahead and add my liquid components. Again, olive oil, a monounsaturated olive oil, just a little bit more about it. It's almost like a cleaning system for your cardiovascular system. As a monounsaturated, it's one of the healthiest oils. It's obviously a plant-based oil, and it falls in our very healthy oil category. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And it really looks so pretty at this point. So far, this is where we are at so far. And then lastly, I'm going to add my lemon juice for a little zip. really such a pretty dish to be plating. It looks very nice for guests. And it also allows a lot of guests, like as you can see, I was able to do this early this morning, just keeping my items refrigerated and pulled out right before the cooking demonstration. And it really is a great way to be able to enjoy guests without feeling like you're bound to your stove or your kitchen. So now I'm going to obviously wipe off the edge because it's a little messy as we stir. But here we have a homemade tzatziki. So now let's go in and discuss some of the items of the ingredients that are in that. So in the yogurt, like I mentioned, it's both rich in protein in a very small quantity. It's also loaded with calcium. So for women, as we get older, our calcium needs increase along with vitamin D. So everyone should be on vitamin D at least 1,000. Most dietitians take 2,000 IUs. And if you don't know your level, you should have it checked, because if you are depleted, you would need a repletion dose, which is a prescription. But for the general population, you'll find that in most cases, the 1,000 to 2,000 international units with about 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams of calcium based on age. So under 50, it's 1,000, and over 50, it's 1,200. People always say to me, oh my gosh, where can I get that? The answer is 3 dairy products a day. But if you don't do dairy, people will often ask the question, how do I go about this? And so there are a lot of different sources, and you could do a vegetarian route. And a lot of that could be in a fortified orange juice, which 400 milligrams is typically what would be in a typical orange juice if you're trying to go in a more vegetarian way. And then there are also things like the Viactive Chews or supplement if people find that that's hard to get in. But in general, 3 dairy products a day will bring you right up to that level. In addition, the yogurt contains phosphorus, magnesium, and potassium, all of these working together for bone health and immunity. So, it is often thought that the yogurt is a great way to build the immunity of the body, gut function, and preventing of leaky gut. So those are the types of things that when we look at the benefit of food, we want to make sure we're getting a lot of bang for our buck. And I believe that yogurt has really done that. So based on this morning's discussion, you can see how the bone health, the immunity, when we as nutritionists, when we talk about survivorship nutrition or prevention nutrition, really in the same category. And in those cases, it's all about building immunity. So the yogurt is doing that, and all the lovely colors of today's dish. So I'm going to move my cutting board, and I'm going to now, while I'm waiting for the rest of the oven to finish for the main dish, I'm going to just prepare my pitas. So in this case, I saw that the recipe offered pita. You could use a whole grain flax cracker. Some people like a real crunch. But in this case, or you could even use naan, which would be delicious, either regular or garlic. But in this case, to keep it as healthy as possible, I went to the Joseph's brand, and I really like the Joseph's brand because I feel that the ingredient list is as minimum as you're going to get in any prepared baked product that also holds up with shelf life. Certainly, I could have made my own pitas or a whole grain bread, which would be trumping this, obviously. But at the same time, this is flax, oat bran, and whole wheat. So what we're looking at for this is one product, one pita. It's only 60 calories. And it's only got a total carbohydrate of 9 grams, so less than a serving of carbohydrate, and 6 grams of protein. And what I also liked about this is the fact that it has flax, which is also going to be a nice soluble flat fiber, as is the oat bran. So we're getting a mix of 2 types of fiber, insoluble in the wheat and soluble in the oat bran and flax. And it's also going to bring you omegas, which is the big boast about this, that it has the omega-3s and ALA included in it. So you're getting another bang for your buck with it. Now, I'm thinking about how my family's going to end up eating this for lunch today. Certainly we can leave it uncooked. But I do think that if you're a person like me who enjoys texture, I'm going to go ahead and these are pretty thin. They're not extremely doughy because of the fact that they're kind of a lower carb option. And I have 4 people eating lunch today. And I'm going to just put them on the cutting board and I'm going to cut them into quarters, which will assist the edges in becoming crispy as I cook. And then that will be in there and it'll be nice and crispy when I go to eat them. So if you're a person who likes texture, like I do, I think it's a good idea to cook them, but certainly do whatever is your preference. There's a chance that this will not finish before we finish, just because of timing, just in terms of the timing in the oven. Like I said, I'm going to flip them in a minute. But a couple other things that I want to say about plant-based eating. I did send the coordinators of this talk a couple of handouts for people. And we want to talk about the plant-based diet. That doesn't really mean vegetarianism. If you want to be a vegetarian or a vegan, that's your option. But when we talk about prevention, and people sometimes will actually schedule a consult with one of the 7 dietitians at Dana-Farber for a prevention type conversation, we end up using the same guidelines that we do in survivorship, because in survivorship, we don't want it to come back. And in prevention, we don't want it to start at all. So in that scenario, I think it's really beneficial to understand that the conversation still evolves around the plant-based diet. People often say, do you have ideas for that? And so I've included 3 days of 6 mini meals that include a plant-based focus. So one of the things that I want to mention is this would be considered a plant-based meal because we have a lot of vegetables and a lot of plant options in it. Each person, when I go to plate this meal, is going to end up getting about 3 ounces of chicken, which for a female is a serving. So some people use the deck of cards or the palm of your hand. So if I combined all the strips of chicken that I'm going to put in this meal, it will end up being about 3 ounces. And what I love about chicken in general is it's versatile. It holds a marinade very nicely. It was very easy to cut up. I don't need any fancy cooking items. And it's the highest source of protein ounce per ounce in any food in terms. So in a 3 ounce portion of chicken, like I said, palm of hand, deck of cards, think that size. That's the 3 ounce portion. It's about 30 calories. It would be about 40 if you use chicken thighs. But the beauty of it, it's 9 grams of protein per ounce. The body can use about 30 grams of protein at a time. So a 3 ounce portion gives you 27 grams and actually would be the most your body could use. So again, it's no wasted calories. It's what you can eat in a typically good to consume in a sitting, and it's all your body can use. Having said that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut up my pitas. These are actually a little bigger than I realized, so I think I'm going to go ahead and do a six pieces per pita. So in conclusion, and I'm going to have to rely, just because of the timing, I'm going to have to rely on the completed picture. So I'm just going to serve my tzatziki in a decorative bowl. I'm going to toast my pitas and put them in a basket. And the pieces I'm doing about this size, just because they're user friendly. And those will go back into the hot oven so that everything kind of finishes at the same time. And I would love to entertain any questions at this point. I'm available as long as you need.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I know that people they were eagerly waiting to see what the end result looked like, but we will be sure to remind them of the photo and the recipe, and also we'll be sure to share with them the additional information and tips that you've provided.